My mom said I was useless and would fail. A year later she was asking for a job. My name is Sarah and I'm 24 years old. I'm telling you this story because I believe that sometimes the people who hurt us the most can also become our greatest motivation to succeed. This is about my mother, about the words that broke me, and about how those same words eventually built me into someone I never thought I could become. Growing up in suburban Denver, Colorado, I always felt like I was living in someone else's shadow. My older brother Jake was the golden child, star quarterback in high school, full scholarship to Colorado State and now a successful engineer. My younger sister Emma was the artistic one, winning every school talent show and getting into prestigious art programs. And then there was me, stuck in the middle trying to figure out where I belonged. My mother, Patricia, was a high school guidance counselor who seemed to have all the answers for everyone else's kids but couldn't see any potential in her own daughter. She had this way of looking at me that made me feel invisible, like I was just taking up space in her perfectly organized world. Our house always smelled like vanilla candles and disappointment. At least that's how I remember it. The worst part wasn't the lack of encouragement. It was the constant comparison. Every dinner conversation revolved around Jake's latest promotion or Emma's newest art piece. When teachers called home about my grades, which weren't bad, just average, my mother would sigh in that particular way that made my stomach drop. That sigh said everything she never had to put into words. That I was the disappointment, the one who just couldn't measure up. I remember spending hours in my bedroom staring at the ceiling, wondering what was wrong with me. Why couldn't I be brilliant like Jake or talented like Emma? Why did every conversation with my mother feel like a performance review where I always came up short? The walls of my room were covered with participation certificates and second-place ribbons, evidence of a life lived almost successfully but never quite enough. School became my escape not because I excelled there but because it was the only place where I felt like I could breathe. I threw myself into different activities, trying desperately to find something I was good at. I joined the debate team, quit after 2 months because I was too nervous to speak up. I tried out for the volleyball team, made junior varsity but never played in actual games. I volunteered at the local animal shelter, which I loved, but my mother dismissed it as playing with puppies rather than building any real skills. The breaking point came during my senior year of high school. I had been accepted to the University of Colorado with a partial academic scholarship. Not a full ride like Jake, but still something to be proud of. I was planning to study business administration because I had always been fascinated by how companies worked, how they grew, and how some succeeded while others failed. I thought my mother would finally be proud of me. Instead, when I showed her my acceptance letter, she barely looked up from her laptop where she was working on some student's college application essay, ironically helping someone else's child plan their future while dismissing mine. The silence in our kitchen that evening was suffocating. The fluorescent light above the table flickered intermittently, casting harsh shadows across my mother's face as she finally put down her reading glasses and looked at me. The disappointment in her eyes was so familiar it felt like coming home to a house that had never wanted me. She told me that business was oversaturated, that I didn't have the personality for it, that I would just end up like so many other mediocre graduates with useless degrees and no real prospects. She said I was setting myself up for failure, that maybe I should consider community college instead, or better yet find a stable job right out of high school and skip the debt altogether. But then came the words that would echo in my mind for the next year. She said I was useless, that I had never shown any real talent or drive for anything, and that I would inevitably fail at whatever I tried to do. She said she was tired of watching me stumble through life without any clear direction or purpose, and that maybe it was time I accepted that some people are just meant to be ordinary. I felt something break inside me that night. It wasn't my heart, that had been cracking slowly for years. It was something deeper, something fundamental about how I saw myself and my place in the world. I realized that I had been living my entire life trying to earn love that was never going to come, seeking approval from someone who had already decided I wasn't worth believing in. That night, lying in my twin bed surrounded by those participation trophies and second-place ribbons, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to prove my mother wrong out of spite. That would have been giving her too much power over my life. Instead, I was going to prove to myself that I was capable of more than anyone had ever imagined, including me. The summer after graduation was the loneliest period of my life, but it was also when everything began to change. While my classmates were celebrating their freedom and preparing for college in the fall, I was working double shifts at a local coffee shop called Mountain Brew, saving every penny I could for my future. The smell of espresso and fresh pastries became my daily reality, and the burned scars on my forearms from the steam wand became badges of my determination. My mother had made it clear that if I insisted on going to college, I would be doing it entirely on my own. No financial support, no encouragement, and definitely no safety net if things went wrong. She seemed almost pleased when she delivered this ultimatum, as if she was finally teaching me a lesson about the real world that she believed I was too naive to understand. But what she didn't realize was that her rejection had freed me from something I hadn't even known was holding me back: the desperate need for her approval. For the first time in my life, I was making decisions based solely on what I wanted, not on what might finally make her proud of me. It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. During those long shifts at Mountain Brew, I started paying attention to things I had never noticed before. I watched how the owner, Mrs. Rodriguez, managed her inventory, how she dealt with difficult customers, how she motivated her employees during busy periods. I observed which promotional strategies worked and which ones fell flat. I noticed patterns in customer behavior, how the morning rush differed from the afternoon crowd, which products had the highest profit margins, and how small changes in presentation could significantly impact sales. Mrs. Rodriguez was a kind woman in her 50s who had immigrated from Mexico 20 years earlier with nothing but a dream and an incredible work ethic. She had built Mountain Brew from a single small location into a thriving local chain with 4 stores across Denver. What impressed me most about her was how she treated every challenge as a learning opportunity rather than a setback. One particularly busy Saturday morning, when our main espresso machine broke down and we were facing a line of increasingly impatient customers, I watched Mrs. Rodriguez handle the crisis with remarkable calm and creativity. Instead of panicking or closing the shop, she turned the situation into an opportunity to showcase our cold brew options and pastries, offering samples and explaining the brewing process to curious customers. By the end of the day, we had actually sold more cold brew than we typically did in an entire week. That evening, as I was cleaning up, I found myself thinking about business strategy in a way I never had before. I started reading business books during my breaks, checking them out from the public library since I couldn't afford to buy them. I devoured everything from basic accounting principles to advanced marketing strategies, from leadership theories to case studies of successful startups. My college classes began in late August, and I quickly realized that my practical experience at Mountain Brew was giving me insights that my textbooks alone never could have provided. While my classmates struggled to understand theoretical concepts, I was connecting classroom learning with real-world applications I had observed firsthand. I wasn't just memorizing definitions of supply and demand. I had seen how they played out in daily business operations. The university campus felt overwhelming at first. Walking across those sprawling grounds, surrounded by students who seemed so confident and prepared, I often felt like an imposter. Many of my classmates came from families where college was expected, where parents had saved for their education since birth, where failure wasn't really an option because there was always a safety net waiting. I didn't have that luxury, and surprisingly, I began to see it as an advantage rather than a disadvantage. Every class I attended, every assignment I completed, every exam I studied for was a choice I was making with my own money and my own time. There was no room for complacency when failure meant not just disappointing someone else, but losing everything I had worked so hard to achieve. My grades that first semester were good, not perfect but solid. More importantly, I was beginning to develop a vision for my future that went beyond just proving my mother wrong. I started to see possibilities I had never imagined before. I began to understand that business wasn't just about making money, it was about solving problems, creating value, and building something meaningful that could impact other people's lives. During my winter break, I approached Mrs. Rodriguez with a proposal. I had noticed that Mountain Brew's social media presence was practically non-existent, and I believed there were missed opportunities to connect with customers and build brand loyalty. I offered to manage their social media accounts in exchange for flexible scheduling around my class hours and a small increase in my hourly wage. Mrs. Rodriguez agreed to let me try, probably more out of kindness than confidence in my abilities. But within 3 months, I had increased their online following by 400%, created engaging content that showcased not just their products but their story as a local family business, and developed a customer loyalty program that increased repeat visits by 25%. The transformation wasn't just happening in Mountain Brew's business metrics. It was happening in me. Every small success built my confidence. Every challenge I overcame proved to myself that I was capable of more than I had ever believed possible. I was discovering talents I didn't know I had and developing skills that no textbook could have taught me. By spring semester, I was no longer the uncertain girl who had graduated high school wondering if she was making a terrible mistake. I was becoming someone who could see opportunities where others saw obstacles. Someone who could turn theoretical knowledge into practical results. Someone who was building something meaningful with her own hands and her own mind. But the most important change was happening inside me. I was learning to trust my own judgment, to value my own opinions, and to believe in my own potential. The voice in my head that sounded like my mother's disappointment was getting quieter, replaced by a growing confidence in my own abilities and vision for the future. By my junior year, I had transformed from that uncertain girl who doubted every decision into someone who could see opportunities everywhere. The confidence I had built through my work at Mountain Brew and my academic success had given me something I had never possessed before. The belief that I could create something meaningful from nothing. Mrs. Rodriguez had become more than just an employer. She had become a mentor who saw potential in me that I was still discovering myself. She started involving me in bigger decisions about the business, asking for my input on everything from menu changes to expansion plans. When she mentioned that she was considering opening a 5th location but wasn't sure about the logistics, I saw an opportunity that would change everything. I spent weeks researching the proposed location, analyzing foot traffic patterns, studying the demographic data and evaluating the competition. I created a comprehensive business plan that outlined not just why the location would be successful, but exactly how to make it happen. My presentation included detailed financial projections, marketing strategies, operational procedures and risk assessment protocols that impressed even Mrs. Rodriguez's business advisors. But more than just analyzing someone else's expansion plans, I was developing my own vision. During my market research, I had noticed a gap that no one seemed to be addressing. While Denver had plenty of coffee shops, very few were truly serving the needs of the growing community of young professionals, freelancers, and entrepreneurs who needed spaces that functioned as both cafes and informal co-working environments. The idea started forming slowly during late nights spent studying in various coffee shops around the city. I watched people struggling to find reliable Wi-Fi, waiting for hours for a single power outlet, or feeling pressured to keep ordering drinks just to maintain their table. I saw freelancers packing up their laptops when the lunch crowd arrived because there wasn't enough space for both laptop users and diners. I noticed how many potentially productive people were leaving these establishments frustrated and unfulfilled. By the summer before my senior year, I had developed a complete concept for what I was calling Workspace Cafe. A hybrid establishment that would serve exceptional coffee and food while providing a professionally equipped environment for people who needed to work. The concept included dedicated workstations with built-in charging ports, high-speed internet designed for heavy usage, soundproof phone booths for private calls, and flexible seating arrangements that could accommodate everything from individual laptop work to small team meetings. I knew that bringing this vision to life would require more than just good ideas. It would require capital, business connections, and credibility that I didn't yet have. So I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. Instead of taking a full course load during my senior year, I reduced my classes to part-time status and used the extra time to launch a consulting business focused on helping small local businesses improve their operations and marketing. My first client was a struggling bakery whose owner was an incredible baker but had no understanding of business fundamentals. Within 3 months, I had helped them streamline their inventory management, develop an online ordering system, and create a social media strategy that tripled their weekend sales. Word spread quickly in Denver's tight-knit small business community, and soon I had a waiting list of clients who wanted my help. Each consulting project taught me something new about business operations, customer psychology, and problem-solving under pressure. I worked with a failing bookstore that I helped transform into a thriving community hub by adding author events and book clubs. I assisted a family-owned restaurant in developing a delivery system that increased their revenue by 40% during slower weekday periods. I helped a struggling fitness studio rebrand itself and develop membership packages that improved both customer retention and monthly revenue. The consulting work was generating enough income that I was able to move out of my cramped studio apartment and into a better place closer to campus. More importantly, it was building my reputation as someone who could deliver real results for real businesses. Local business publications started featuring my success stories, and I was invited to speak at small business development workshops hosted by the city's Economic Development Office. But the most significant moment came when I received an unexpected phone call in February of my senior year. The caller introduced herself as Jennifer Walsh, a venture capitalist who had heard about my work through one of my consulting clients. She wanted to meet with me to discuss a potential investment opportunity. The meeting took place at a sleek downtown office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Rocky Mountains. Jennifer was a sharp, professional woman in her early 40s who had built her career by identifying and nurturing promising entrepreneurs before they became household names. She had done her homework on me, and she was impressed not just by my academic achievements and consulting success, but by my vision for Workspace Cafe. During our 3-hour conversation, Jennifer challenged every aspect of my business plan, questioned my assumptions, and pushed me to think bigger than I had ever imagined possible. By the end of our meeting, she had offered me something I never could have anticipated: seed funding for Workspace Cafe, along with mentorship and connections that could help me turn my concept into reality. The terms of her offer were fair but demanding. She would provide initial capital and ongoing guidance, But I would need to prove that I could execute my vision within specific timeframes and performance metrics. There would be regular check-ins, detailed reporting requirements, and clear benchmarks that I would need to meet to secure additional funding for expansion. I accepted her offer immediately, not because I was desperate, but because I recognized that this was exactly the kind of opportunity one had been preparing for without even realizing it. Every late night spent studying business theory, every challenge I had overcome at Mountain Brew, every problem I had solved for my consulting clients had been building toward this moment. The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. I was finishing my degree while simultaneously securing permits, negotiating lease terms, designing the interior layout, hiring staff, and developing operational procedures for Workspace Cafe. I was working 18-hour days, surviving on coffee and determination, but I had never felt more energized or focused in my life. By graduation day in May, Workspace Cafe was just 2 weeks away from opening. As I walked across that stage to receive my diploma, I wasn't thinking about the family members who weren't there to celebrate with me, or the mother who had predicted my failure. I was thinking about the team I had built, the customers I was about to serve, and the business I had created from nothing but vision, hard work, and an unwavering belief in my own potential. The girl who had once been told she was useless and destined to fail was about to open her own business at 22 years old, with the backing of a respected investor and a waiting list of customers who believed in her concept. But the most important transformation wasn't visible to anyone else. It was the quiet confidence that had replaced years of self-doubt, and the knowledge that I had earned every opportunity through my own merit and determination. Workspace Cafe opened on a sunny Monday morning in June, exactly 13 months after my mother had told me I was useless and would fail at everything I attempted. The line of customers wrapped around the block, a mix of curious locals, freelancers who had been eagerly waiting for our opening, and small business owners who had heard about our concept through word of mouth. Standing behind the counter that first morning, watching my carefully trained staff serve our signature drinks while customers settled into workstations that I had personally designed, I felt a sense of accomplishment that went far beyond financial success. This wasn't just a business. It was proof that believing in yourself can overcome any amount of doubt that others try to impose on you. The first few months exceeded even Jennifer's optimistic projections. Our customer retention rate was remarkable, with many people becoming daily regulars who treated Workspace Cafe as their primary office. We were featured in local business magazines, food blogs, and even a national publication that highlighted innovative small businesses changing their communities. More importantly, we were genuinely solving problems for people, creating a space where productivity and community could coexist. By October, we were consistently profitable and had a waiting list for our premium workstations. Jennifer was so impressed with our performance that she was already discussing expansion plans for additional locations. But the success metrics that mattered most to me were the stories I heard from customers, freelancers who had landed major clients after productive days spent working in our space, students who had completed important projects with the help of our resources, entrepreneurs who had formed partnerships with other Workspace Cafe regulars. My consulting business was also thriving, with more clients than I could handle requesting my services. I had hired 2 associate consultants to help manage the workload, and we were developing a reputation as the go-to team for small businesses looking to scale effectively. The combination of Workspace Cafe and my consulting practice was generating more income than I had ever imagined possible at my age. But financial success wasn't the most significant change in my life. The girl who had once desperately sought approval from others had become a woman who trusted her own judgment completely. I had learned to make decisions based on careful analysis and intuition rather than fear of disappointment. I had built a network of mentors, peers, and supporters who believed in my vision and capabilities. Most importantly, I had proven to myself that I could turn ideas into reality through hard work, strategic thinking, and persistence. The phone call came on a cold Thursday afternoon in November. I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office above the cafe when my assistant informed me that my mother was on the line. We hadn't spoken since graduation day, when she had offered a brief, lukewarm congratulation that felt more obligatory than genuine. I almost told my assistant to take a message, but curiosity won out. My mother's voice sounded different, smaller somehow, less certain than the authoritative tone I remembered from my childhood. She asked about the business, commenting that she had heard about Workspace Cafe's success through mutual acquaintances. She mentioned that she had seen the article about me in Denver Business Journal, and she seemed genuinely surprised by what I had accomplished in such a short time. But then the conversation took a turn that I never could have anticipated. My mother explained that she had been laid off from her position as a guidance counselor due to budget cuts in the school district. At 53, she was finding it difficult to secure another position with comparable salary and benefits. She had been unemployed for 3 months and her savings were running low. What came next was perhaps the most surreal moment of my entire life. My mother, the woman who had told me I would inevitably fail at everything I attempted, was asking if I might have any job opportunities available at my company. She mentioned her experience in counseling and administrative work, her organizational skills, and her ability to work with diverse groups of people. She was essentially interviewing with me, her daughter, for a position at the business she had never believed I could successfully create. I listened to her entire pitch without interruption, processing the complete reversal of our roles. The woman who had once held all the power in our relationship was now in the vulnerable position of needing my help. The daughter she had dismissed as useless was now in a position to potentially provide her with employment and financial stability. My first instinct was to feel vindicated, to savor this moment of ultimate irony. But as I listened to the uncertainty in her voice, I realized that revenge would have been hollow and ultimately destructive to the person I had worked so hard to become. This wasn't about proving her wrong anymore. It was about choosing who I wanted to be when faced with the opportunity to show grace or cruelty. I told her I would consider her request and get back to her within a week. During that time I consulted with Jennifer, spoke with my trusted friends and mentors, and did a lot of soul-searching about what kind of leader and person I wanted to be. The easy path would have been to either hire her immediately out of guilt or reject her application out of spite. But neither of those options felt aligned with the values I had developed over the past year. Instead, I decided to handle her application exactly as I would any other candidate. I invited her in for a formal interview, reviewed her qualifications objectively, and evaluated whether she would be a good fit for our team culture and operational needs. I wanted to make a decision based on business merit rather than personal history. The interview took place on a Monday morning in early December. Seeing my mother sit across from my desk in my own office was surreal beyond description. She was professionally dressed and clearly nervous, a stark contrast to the confident, dismissive woman I remembered from my childhood. She answered my questions thoughtfully, demonstrated genuine interest in our mission, and acknowledged the awkward dynamics of our situation with more maturity than I had expected. After careful consideration, I offered her a position as our customer relations coordinator, a role that would utilize her counseling background to help resolve conflicts, gather feedback, and ensure customer satisfaction. The salary was fair but modest, appropriate for someone starting a new career path. More importantly, it was a position where she could contribute meaningfully to our success without having direct authority over other aspects of the business. She accepted the offer immediately, and her relief was palpable. As we discussed start dates and job responsibilities, I realized that this moment represented the final transformation in my journey. I was no longer the girl seeking her mother's approval, nor was I the young woman trying to prove her mother wrong. I had become someone who could make difficult decisions with wisdom, extend opportunities based on merit, and separate personal history from professional judgment. Working with my mother has been challenging but ultimately rewarding for both of us. She has proven to be dedicated, professional, and genuinely committed to our team's success. More importantly, she has begun to understand who I have become and what I have accomplished. Our relationship may never be the warm, supportive connection I once longed for, but it has evolved into something based on mutual respect rather than disappointment and resentment. Today, exactly 18 months after she told me I was useless and would fail, Workspace Cafe is expanding to 3 new locations. My consulting firm is handling clients across the Western United States, and I'm being recognized as one of Denver's most promising young entrepreneurs. But the success I'm most proud of isn't measured in revenue or recognition. It's the knowledge that I built all of this by trusting myself, working relentlessly toward my goals, and refusing to let anyone else's limitations define my potential. Sometimes the people who doubt us most become our greatest sources of motivation, not because we need their validation, but because their skepticism forces us to find strength we never knew we possessed. My mother's harsh words didn't break me. They broke me free from the need for anyone else's approval and launched me toward a future I had never dared to imagine possible.